Hey, everybody. Welcome to Mastering Local Marketing. This is episode 138. Please go to Mastering Local Marketing wherever you get your podcast and subscribe. Wherever you're at, whatever country, whatever town you are, it's all the same principles. Maybe a little bit different laws as we're going to talk about today. We're going to kind of confine ourselves to American regulations and laws, but I think some of the same principles apply to some of your other countries that have found us, and we appreciate that. Matt Hansen, of course, is a digital marketing professor from way back before it was even called digital marketing. Matt, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Some of the easiest digital marketing tactics are starting to become the riskiest. Brands are getting sued for using popular music in social media posts. Younger consumers are quicker to boycott businesses they do not trust, and fake reviews are now under closer watch from even the FTC. In this episode, we break down three major shifts every local business should pay attention to, and why the next phase of marketing may be less about chasing attention and more about earning trust. Matt Hansen, why are we doing this?
I think people are going to be caught off guard as we continue to move forward. I think, we've talked a lot about AI and social media and kind of all of these different things that are going on. But, I actually had somebody reach out to be on the podcast, and we didn't make the connection. We didn't get them on. But one of the things that they were talking about was how we have to understand the legal ramifications of what we're doing online. And I thought this would be a great episode. We can sit down and kind of have a heart-to-heart conversation about things that that they may be doing and they don't even realize it. So the first one that we're going to talk about is social media and kind of using the free music that they provide to you. And it was funny because when I heard about this, and I kind of knew you can't do this, but the platforms give you music to build posts and all this other stuff, right? So I started looking into it a little bit deeper, and I was kind of shocked because there are major brands out there that are getting sued for using the quote unquote free music that's on social that you can go in, the trending audio and those types of things. And as I started to look into it, I started to uncover some pretty substantial brands that were getting sued on this. And I know PacSun was one of them. They're getting sued for $43 million. Crumble was sued for almost $24 million. DSW was sued for $30 million. And it's really, the numbers come down to $150,000 per instance. So what does that mean, right? What it means is they're going out there and they're using these songs that are on these social platforms that are meant for personal use only, not commercial, and they're utilizing that music in their ads. And these music companies are coming back in and saying, well, you're profiting off of our music, we should get a percentage of that. So that's what's starting to happen. Now, this has been going on for about 2 years. And why I bring this up is because, yes, I understand we're not dealing with the PacSuns, the Crumbles, and the DSWs on this podcast. But we are dealing with people that $150,000 instance of being sued is going to probably take many of you out of business just having to deal with that. And this goes back, I actually had a designer friend of mine that used to do, he may still do it, do posters for local theater. And he created this poster and he posted it online, just basically telling people, come see this show, posted his graphics up there. And he got a notification that he had to take it down and to cease using that image. So you may think that you're too small to get noticed, but in reality, you're not. It's just going to take that one instance where they're going to catch you using it, and it's going to cause some serious problems. So I wanted to bring this up. And, I reached out to some of my clients recently about this, and they said, I never even knew about it. I've got one client that will send me ads and it's got all of this music in it. And I keep telling him not to do it and he keeps doing it. It's just a matter of time. If you're using music that has a copyright on it, that they're going to flag you at some point. If you make it through, you may think you're okay, but you're going to get flagged at some point.
I'm pretty excited about this one actually, because it's right up our alley. By the way, I'm Jim Deedlow, and I'm the owner of some radio stations and a streaming sports platform. All sorts of copyright ledges we have to stay off of. I'll just give you an example. One is making a 30-second spot itself. We used to do one for a lawyer that we used that Law and Order thing right at the beginning, and that was it. It was like 2 seconds, and we got a nasty gram from them, and rightfully so. I'm like, whoa, and then we got pushed out to that. So what has happened with the music industry on the radio side, and I think generally, is that they were in court for a long time, the different CSAC and ASCAP and GMR, and they kind of won their lawsuits. And so now they've gone back and they can comb the internet, they can comb your radio station, they can comb your contracts. And that's easy to do now with AI. It used to just be, no, that would be too voluminous, 15,000 radio stations. They could do it one little click, return, you're in, let's see who's violating. And they've gotten really good at it. So even if you're a little small business and you're running a social media ad, or you're running a little ad on the local radio station or the local streaming video or cable or whatever, or even if you're just using an image that you're posting on a billboard, you gotta comb it. As a matter of fact, you can throw it into AI and say, hey, are there any possible violations on this? And it'll analyze it for you. You used to be able to have to kind of make a judgment. You don't have to, and they'll bring it up. They'll go a little too deep on it, say, well, this may be similar to a Smokey Robinson song or whatever. The second thing is, we stream on our own platform and we simulcast on radio stations. I own the money. I own the rights on the radio station. But when we go on YouTube, we have to play little, completely non-copyrighted music that is very overtly non-copyrighted, not something that kind of sounds like the Allman Brothers or something that kind of sounds like Taylor Swift. No, you got to get away. They'll extrapolate that into, you're using the Taylor Swift theme. You can't do that. So we got like little generic piano elevator music that has to play. We don't even really play any music as we go to the next segment. So they will comb it and they will find if you use more than 6 or 7 seconds of that. So I just want everybody to know that the technology has gotten way better. Doesn't matter how small you are, they will come after you. And this has cost me in having to just learn. I mean, let's think about this learning curve I had to do about what's copyrighted and what's not. It's not just the music. It's also the image. It can even be the theme or the style. So you need somebody who's paranoid like me and Matt to look at your stuff before you send it out.
Yeah, I never even thought about that with the lawyer. Just 2 little notes can trigger a letter. I mean, it's amazing.
And if you think about it, they're right. These guys, think about it. Here we are in Northwest Indiana. They just came out with the Jackson movie, right? Michael Jackson movie, however you feel about it. But they're very covetous of the Michael Jackson library, the estate is. And you can't use anything. And some people have used it in their ads, and they comb it everywhere. And you have to watch that you're not using any likeness. Some kid dressed up like Michael Jackson. It's actually a violation. So I appreciate this topic more than most. But you also wanted to hit another one, Matt. And this is something that small and medium-sized businesses are having to deal with. And we had one who got boycotted because of something that was said on our radio /YouTube /podcasting. And they basically had a digital attack by maybe a group of about 15 or 20 people that snipped something, threw it up, and now all of a sudden they're coming after the person's business. I didn't even know how to address that, but how prevalent is it right now?
Yeah, I think, people are very strong behind their keyboards, right? So they're faceless. They can shoot, a comment off and not really think too much about it. And we have to look at it. It's kind of like reviews. It's kind of, if you post something on social and somebody doesn't like it and they take it too far and they run with it. And next thing you know, you've got 100 people that are commenting on it and all those other things. So you really got to kind of understand where you're heading and have a plan for it. So I've mentioned a couple times through the podcast where we did an ad that was very political, and it was going, it was basically talking about, are you leaning left? Are you leaning right? And it was about, tire alignment and stuff like that. I asked them, I said, are you okay? Are you comfortable with that? And they said, yeah, let it run. It's fine. We're okay with the comments. We invite the conversation. If they're talking about us. And I went, okay, that's great. And it went one of a million different ways. But are you going to lose some customers doing something like that? Potentially. If you say something, are you going to lose customers? Potentially. But where it goes is up to you. You just got to have a plan in place, and you have to understand how I'm going to deal with what I'm doing, what I'm posting, and live with that. I think today, especially in 2026, I think people are getting tired of the internet. I think people are getting tired of social media. I think people are getting tired of the distractions that our phones put into our hands, right? So we watch whether you're spending 3-4 hours on your phone, the next year it's 5 hours on your phone, the next year it's 6 hours on your phone. And I think we're all getting to that point where we just want to limit what we're dealing with. So we start to kind of boycott different things and we start to step away from it. Whether it's something that we've said or whether it's the fact that we just get so much information thrown at us these days, there's this shift happening. And I know people that have these apps on their phones where they can't go on social media until they do something, right? They've got to, put some kind of special code in, or they've got to do something on their phone, answer emails or whatever it may be. There's all these different apps that are controlling whether or not we can get to those. And the start of this year, I actually took my phone and I took everything that I don't need to touch on a daily basis, and I pushed it to page 2, page 3, page 4 of my iPhone. So when you look at my iPhone, there's about 12 apps on the home screen, and then I have to swipe to get to the other stuff. And that's helped me limit a little bit more of what I'm doing. And the reason that I'm mentioning this is because if you are a small business and you're relying on social media to drive traffic, how does that affect you, right? So if less people are engaged, if people are boycotting the apps that you're advertising on, and this is 2026, what's going to happen in 2028, 2029, when we're just so inundated with all kinds of messaging? It's just going to get worse. At what point do we push back? And we're starting to see that pushback right now, where we're seeing a lot more marketing go back to local efforts. We're seeing a rise in in direct mail at this point. I'm seeing different businesses that are arising just based off of this, where they're letter businesses that people are writing stories and sending artwork and all this other stuff. They're creating businesses because people want to go back to a simpler way of life. So that's going to affect how our ads produce, how our content produces on social, because people are pushing back a little bit more.
And Matt's saying that with a little smirk, in that I own the bunch of local media, but mostly kind of high-tech local streaming and both news and on sports, and 15 million Facebook. But we have seen, I would say, just since the first of the year, a massive shift coming to us. And Matt's been on me, hey, you got to get out and tell your story. And that's what I'm basically doing after an election that happens tomorrow, because we're calling it the pivot to local, and it's happening. So most local media have either died or have just become more irrelevant. For whatever reason, we've been able to stick around mostly through sports. And now all of a sudden we've been sticking around long enough. It's like, why are you coming to us? Oh, we're just tired of social media. We're tired of digital media. We're getting lost. I'm tired of paying so much for a 3-second view. Our ad runs next to your high school athletes. We're good with that. Let's go. And I don't think it's a CPM thing as much as it is a trust factor. So you started out with trust. And I'm fairly convinced it's mainly trust that people are missing. And I don't know what that means for digital marketing. I don't. I think you bring up a good question.
Yeah, I think there's too much noise in digital, right? So you go back 10 years ago and Meta would produce outstanding results. Today, those costs have gone up. You're competing with more people. I mean, it was before everyone kind of jumped on the bandwagon. And I think where we're heading now is that pushback. It's saying, okay, well, everyone jumped on digital. The local media has kind of suffered, right? We've had a lot of people go out of business, but now there's that pushback to say, well, there's not as much noise in the local level as there is online. So let's go back where the noise is quiet. And when I say noise, that I mean the number of advertisers that you're seeing, the ads. I mean, you can't go on social media without seeing 100 different ads as you're scrolling through at this point, whereas that didn't used to be the case. The same thing today, when you open up your mailbox, you're pulling out maybe one, maybe two. Maybe I'm off the list. I don't know, but maybe one, maybe two pieces every single day. You're not getting what you used to see. And with that comes the flexibility and the freedom to basically promote your message without having to compete with everybody else that's sending out the same stuff.
So, finally, in one of the trends that you really got to watch out for is something that, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it, but it's to me prevalent. And my wife and I go to a lot of different restaurants and she reads all the reviews and I'm like, that doesn't sound real. That doesn't sound real. And that is a problem right now. And the FTC is getting involved in this, but that is the deceptive reviews. Actually, it goes back to trust again. And, what can you trust out there? And just, what are you seeing?
This goes back actually to when I would say, goodness, probably another 10 years ago when Shopify and drop shipping was a huge thing. I was watching all of these students just because I'm in a college setting. And I'm watching all of these students launch these drop shipping sites. And then all of a sudden they have, 50 reviews on their websites. And I'm going, where did you get all these reviews? And the questions started to happen, right? And you read these reviews, they don't sound real. They sound a little bit AI at this point with some of the stuff that's going on. But the FTC stepped in back in 2024 and basically said, you can't do this, right? Like you can't have fake reviews. You can't hire people to give you reviews. And they actually assigned a punishment to it. So, they impose a $50,000 fine per instance on buying fake reviews. So you can go over to Fiverr, you can go over to, a variety of other different websites and find people that will generate reviews for you, but that's an issue, right? So again, $50,000 is going to take out many small businesses if they get fined for that. And if you've got, 4 fake reviews on there, that's a $200,000 fine. It's not something that you want to do. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not pretending to be a lawyer on a podcast or anything like that, but this stuff is it's on the internet, it's on their websites, it's real, and we need to pay attention to these things. There's a variety of things that happen. And another one that I go back in time and I remember is JCPenney, back when they were doing the rebrand and all of those types of things, they had hired a company to do all of their SEO work, right? So, you go over to Google and you type up, white collared dress shirt, and JCPenney was popping up, and all of these different search terms as they were sending them out. But if you typed in tires, they were still coming up. So it was setting off some red flags. So Google looked into it and started to realize that they were pulling this agency that they had hired was doing some things they shouldn't do. Right. So JCPenney had hired the agency and the agency had done the work. So JCPenney was basically, they got caught. And they said it wasn't them, it was their agency. But what Google did was they punished them by dropping them in the ranking. So you were ranking on page 1 in the top spot. Now you're ranking on page 67 of the search term. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they did that right before Christmas, which caused a significant drop in revenue over that Christmas season. again, watch who you're hiring, watch the agencies that you're hiring, because you are actually, if somebody goes out there and puts up fake reviews and they're your agency doing it, you hire the agency, you're still on the hook for what your agency does.
So really, you're coming back to all three of these. You're coming back to the importance of trust. So most of you listening or watching are small to medium-sized business owners, or you work in a marketing department, or you're like geek out on this stuff in one way or another. And what you do, your HVAC, your collectibles shop, your sub shop, your automotive repair, your marketing agency in a local area, all of those things are built on trust and maybe people-to-people interaction. Somehow you have to figure out that when you are extrapolating your people-to-people interactions to the internet, it's still trust. And people are looking for it. I agree with you, Matt, on that. I mean, it's just the number one thing, which comes to our final part of this, and that it always comes down to AI and what AI is doing and what you can do with it. And I just wonder what your thinking is on how AI and trust come together.
So there's a theory out there called the dead internet theory, and it gets a little bit too deep and dark, and it goes back a few years, and it just basically is talking about how the internet is nothing but bots communicating with each other and all this other content. I think the way to look at the dead internet theory should be they kind of coin it dead internet at this point, is AI is generating so much content that's being put out on the internet that we're in 2026 right now in the infancy. We've talked about this again, how at some point there's going to be the big three AI players that pop out of this, and they're going to be the ones that are the Google, Bings, and Yahoos of search, right? So until then, we have all this content that's being developed, and it's pushing out there to the internet, and we don't know what's real and what isn't. My wife will send me something, and my kids and I will laugh and say that's AI, but that's where we're at this point in 2026. And AI has only been around for a short time in the capacity that we know. What happens 10 years from now, or even 5 years from now? Is the internet going to be nothing but AI generated content? And what I mean by that is not necessarily it's bad content or anything like that, but going back to the word you've used already multiple times in this podcast is trust. Are we going to trust what's on the internet moving forward once AI gets to be used so much by so many different brands, so many different companies, so many different people? Or is it just going to be, when we think about the internet in the future, is it going to be like daylight or daytime TV where you turn it on and there's just really nothing worth watching on TV? Is the internet going to be that? And we're just going to look at everything and go, is it real? Is it not? I don't know. I'm wasting my time. I'm going to go talk to somebody and figure that out. And I think where a lot of that local business is starting to generate, that local advertising is starting to generate, is that trust part of it, that we're untrusting of what we're reading on the internet at this point, of what we're seeing, and we're pushing to a more localized level with people that we can talk to, that we can see. And I've said this a million times in the last few years. I think the future of marketing is all about personal selling. I think we're heavy into digital right now, but I think there's going to be a dramatic shift back to personal selling as we move forward. People are going to trust talking face to face versus seeing something that they're seeing on the internet. It's just my take. I may be wrong, but I see the trend happening right now.
Mastering Local Marketing, episode 138. If you're catching this on my radio stations or you're picking it up on YouTube, hey, go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your audio podcasts, and like us so that you'll know when the new episodes come out. Matt had a little hiccup. He had to do a couple things, and we might have missed our regular schedule, but we're pretty regular about this. And if you have any questions, all you've got to do is email me at jed@wjob1230.com or matt@digitalhelium.com, and we'll talk about whatever it is. I have one maybe suggestion you might address is, Matt and I realized that when we started this, it was all digital marketing. Now, two things have happened. All of a sudden, there is a pivot to local in the last 3 months since the first of the year. And then there is also the introduction and proliferation of AI. Do you want to hear more about AI? Do you want to hear more about local? What do you want to hear about? All you got to do is email either one of us. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you.